Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Adopting Twinmotion for Smarter Solutions, where we will dive into Twinmotion and understand where it fits within the Unreal subscription. You'll most likely hear at Unreal Fest because you're interested in or work with Unreal Engine. However, with the Unreal subscription, you get access to other tools, including Twinmotion. But first, show of hands, how many Twinmotion users do I currently have? Okay, about half. How many Unreal users do I have? The other half, maybe? Okay, great. Well, so my goal of today's session is for you to leave here with a better understanding of how and when you can use Twinmotion to generate final output content, or as a shortcut to Unreal, making it a smart solution in a larger workflow. So we'll also cover how you can use all of these tools in collaboration with other tools in the industry to some degree. And we'll also have some tips on how to incorporate data from other programs into the Unreal ecosystem. So first, I'll give you a little background about myself. My name is Matt Edmonds. I'm a career architect, 30 years under my belt. But 2 years ago, I worked for Page, a large 1,500 person, big A, little E firm with 21 offices across the US and Mexico. But 2 years ago, I transitioned out of being a full-time architect to pursue my kind of career-long passion in visualization. And now I'm the director of our technology lab at Page, which is kind of one of 6 areas that comprise our kind of innovation group within the practice. So we're a central service effectively supporting architects across the firm. So most of what I do is in Twinmotion. Generally the models are coming from Revit, but if we're working with teams across the firm, it could be SketchUp, it could be Rhino, it could be Blender, but most of it is coming from Revit. So I'm passionate about what I do, about visualization, upping the game of what we present to our clients. And I really help teaching my colleagues like how they can choose the right tool for the job. So today, like I said, I'm here representing my own firm, Page, but I want to thank Sam Anderson, who's not able to attend this event, but she helped put together this slide deck, which I adopted not too long ago to take over for her. But if you know Sam, she's a great presenter and always has pretty insightful commentary on the industry. So also want to thank our Unreal Engine reseller, Archviz. So Corey Robidoux is my day-to-day contact there. He's the CEO. And they're a company that provides not only Epic Game software, but also products from Chaos Group, like V-Ray and Vantage and those types of things, as well as things like RailClone and Forest Pack from i2Soft and Anima, which is a tool that I've become really fond of when working in Unreal. So let's now focus on the topic at hand, which is Twinmotion. So why Twinmotion? Well, this is my 3rd time attending an Unreal Fest. And every year I meet all these enthusiastic artists wanting to dive into Unreal. But guess what? A lot of them are just getting started and everybody's overwhelmed. I mean, how many buttons and variables and dials and all of those things does any user need? Well, 2 years ago, that was me as well, just completely overwhelmed. But little by little, I learned more and more about the tool and a comfort level of getting into Unreal and generating some content. But Twinmotion is really a core tool in my workflow because it is so easy to use, and you can pick it up and turn around content in a matter of, 8 hours, 24 hours, a few days. So when I talk to these users that are overwhelmed, I usually ask them what their goal is. What are they trying to accomplish? And many times what they want to do is actually easily accomplishable in Twinmotion, oftentimes with a one-button kind of solution. Twinmotion is just that platform that has crafted tools to not require a rocket science degree in Unreal Engine to get the job done. So Additionally, I hear of inexperienced Unreal Engine users problem solving or trying to accomplish certain things that already have those one-click solutions. But with the Unreal subscription, you get Twinmotion and reality capture. So we're going to learn now about how you can accelerate your workflows and get through projects as quickly as possible without sacrificing the quality. So let's start with the basics, right? What is Twinmotion? For those not familiar, it's an easy-to-use visualization tool that's built on the Unreal Engine platform, but with an interface that can be mastered quickly. Many times artists will say, oh, that's the architecture tool. And yes, while it was started by architects, for architects, it has evolved into so much more since joining Epic's ecosystem and becoming a tool for all creators. You kind of see that here in the conference with M&E, automotive, product design, etc. So it's a great stepping stone too for anyone brand new to real-time rendering. Produces great imagery, presentation, virtual reality, and even a simple solution for pixel streaming, which we'll look at a little bit later. So the best part, if there's a special effect or functionality lacking in Twinmotion, you can always just migrate your project when you reach that limit in Twinmotion right over to Unreal Engine using the same export to datasmith process that you use to get from your modeling app into Twinmotion in the first place. So let's take a second to understand very simple workflow, starting with your modeling tool of choice. So step one, export to Epic's datasmith format using one of the many plugins available on their website. And we are going to talk about the direct link process a little bit later on, which is a different way to get from your modeling app into Twinmotion. Step two, import the data. The datasmith content into Twinmotion, and you're off and running, ready to customize lighting, materials, add entourage, and set up your renders. Step three, only if necessary, export your fully developed Twinmotion scene over to Unreal to take the next steps. All right, so let's zoom out a bit for a second, take a look at how this tool stacks up with the others you may be familiar with, and dive into when and why you might want to use one tool versus the other. So I'm going to add a few additional tools in the comparison, as many industries are using more than just the Epic ecosystem. So there's a time and place for each of these, so my hope is that you can take this information and make some smart decisions on when to use each one and maximize your time and efficiency. So let's study these a bit. We've got Twinmotion and Unreal Engine. Of course, there's a few chaos products here. Anima's not shown, but like I said, it's one of my favorites. But as you can see this comparison, like all of these tools have an asset library, and all of them are frankly pretty good. But the honest truth is that with Quixel and Sketchfab integrated tightly into both Epic Games platforms, their offerings are orders of magnitudes greater, right, than what you get from some of these other players in the industry. So I'll also point out that the output options for end deliverables as you move from left to right on this comparison kind of get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, all right, let's look at what this pipeline actually looks like. So this is thanks to Sam Anderson. So here's an example of a project she worked on from Studio Ladder, created in Unreal Engine. So this was a quick turnaround project and included data from different teams and different models. As an Unreal Engine user, she knows that she can create data prep recipes to organize, combine meshes, and purge models before bringing them in. This is something she would have chosen if she knew there would have been continual updates to the geometry, but instead decided to first import the project into Twinmotion to set things up cleanly. So diving into the details a little bit, which we're going to look at more live later on in the presentation, but when you import a project into Twinmotion, you have some options, right? The first is the ability to keep the hierarchy of the data as it's coming out of the modeling app. So we'll look at exactly what that means later. This results, though, in a massive amount of individual elements to keep track of and modify. You know what scenes look like when they come into Unreal. Your outliner is 10,000 things long, and you have to constantly kind of deal with that number of things in a list, if you're not using data prep in Unreal to kind of keep it tidy. So this is precisely what Sam did, though. She imported the context model into Twinmotion And she used the combined mesh option, okay? So the combined mesh option packages it all into one piece, since she knew that the context model outside of her project could all be one material. She then brought in all the other data as combined by material. I'm not sure if she used the keep hierarchy option for anything, but typically keep hierarchy has a few different use cases, which we'll also cover later. So once everything was imported into Twinmotion, you can quickly replace materials on everything assigned as brick, for example, in her modeling application. Because Twinmotion, again, says, hey, everything that's got brick, collapse it into one material. It ends up being one item in your scene graph. Much easier than, 250 brick walls. So that's definitely more of a nightmare if you don't need that level of control. Lastly, any geometry that was brought in as keep hierarchy could be dealt with individually and assigned unique materials, one object at a time. So for hero objects, and anything where you want to be able to operate on a mesh by mesh by mesh basis, you go with the keep hierarchy option. So 2 additional considerations about that approach. Yes, keep hierarchy brings in all the individual pieces of your model separately in your scene graph, resulting in a long list. But if you're going to be using Lumen, which is the global illumination system in Twinmotion, to create animations, you need to use keep hierarchy for at least part of your model exports. It just allows the global illumination system to more accurately calculate light bounces, right? If everything's collapsed into one mesh, the algorithm's not as efficient, and you can get some artifacts, frankly. So the second consideration is if you want to use Twinmotion's replace function, which we'll do a little bit later, to broadly swap out low-quality assets from your modeling app, you need to use that keep hierarchy setting so that each thing comes in as an individual selectable mesh that you can replace. All right, so after that, Sam imported the project into Unreal Engine after she did all the cleanup and organizational stuff through the Twinmotion import and continued building the environment there. So that's one way you can use Twinmotion as part of your workflow. Simply a platform to easily structure your model in a way that will be more manageable in Unreal Engine after the fact. In the architectural industry, this is incredibly useful when working with large data sets representing buildings with tens of thousands of elements. Think about curtain wall on a high rise, right? Every single mullion of every single pane comes in as a separate mesh. So quite a headache that you want to avoid. So either the Twinmotion workflow with collapse or a data prep recipe to combine those meshes is going to really improve your efficiency. So anyone in the automotive industry, this process can also be super handy for all of those like super highly detailed assets. All right, so what does this look like in Twinmotion? Here I've got the import options screen open, showing you what's available. You see the keep hierarchy, you see my mouse? Yeah, keep hierarchy, collapse by material, and collapse all options under this collapse dropdown. So if you go further down, you also see there's options for what should be processed, including meshes, lights, etc. So that's under this process thing. Oftentimes, which we'll get into a little bit, lights that come in from a modeling app like Revit or other BIM platforms you bring in far more than you might need if you're not careful. So most of the time, I'm just going to bring in meshes when I do an import for an architectural project. And if I need lights from the modeling app for whatever reason, I might just create a separate small export of only the lights that I need for the particular interior spaces that I'm going to visualize or see from the outside if I'm looking in. All right. So if you're in the media and entertainment industry, Twinmotion can be efficient in a few other ways. So you're most likely working with a lot of different teams to get from original ideas to the final set. So along the way, those different teams probably have a lot of different skill sets, and most likely not everyone knows Unreal Engine. This is where Twinmotion can fit in with its easy-to-use interface. Set designers, art directors, set builders, anyone really can use Twinmotion to develop their ideas thanks to its super short learning curve, easy interface. So included now are tools that allow for creators to even add LED walls and cycloramas to their projects for virtual production and chroma keying. They can use this to communicate how far props need to be from the screen or to block out storylines and more, sort of like pre-production planning. So with Twinmotion, you have, because as I was saying earlier, you have access to these huge libraries from Sketchfab and Quixel, and native Twinmotion libraries, which aren't, that's a pretty good library as well. You can easily drag and drop things just straight from these built-in resources and very quickly populate a scene to establish scale for a set in a fraction of the time you could do it in other platforms. All right, so let's talk about final products. With one of the recent releases, a highly customizable volumetric cloud system arrived, providing more flexible and real-time process for setting up your skies and atmospheric qualities. Although a lot of people still use HDRIs, I find this new capability to be much faster and yield incredible results. It really allows you to fine-tune all kinds of different variables that, frankly, I find to be very difficult to find in just one HDRI. And if you need to adjust it, good luck. So the cloud system really, for me, has replaced the HDRI sky background approach in rendering. So in Twinmotion, we now have 3 different rendering options. So with the addition of Lumen, and generally speaking, as I was saying earlier, I use Lumen for animation, I use Path Tracer for stills, but the standard legacy engine that Twinmotion started with many years ago, I only use when I'm working like on a lower end GPU that can't handle it, or I have scenes that I'm just doing scene setup and I don't really care about the visual quality. That engine tends to run a little faster because it's not trying to do as much. Although I will say Lumen is quickly catching up and it may have passed it. So that said, I'd never use the legacy engine for output. Never, ever. It's just the lighting is not there. So with each new release of Twinmotion 2, the list of export options keeps growing. As you saw in the product comparison earlier, Twinmotion can export almost any media type via a super easy to use export interface. So let's talk about final products now. With one of the recent releases, oh, I'm sorry, didn't go on. I was supposed to be stepping through those. Sorry. All right. So additionally, the presentation features built into Twinmotion are huge time savers. So for instance, if you're developing an Unreal project for mobile or pixel streaming, it's helpful to start with a template, as there's so many different settings and strategies for developing for mobile. But with Twinmotion, you can really just develop your project and you have all of these options available at output. You don't have to set up particular variables in your project settings at the beginning or along the way because you're wanting to go down one path. Twinmotion just has it all nicely packaged together. So here's a project that was set up for virtual photo shoots. But then if you have a headset plugged in, literally connected, linked to your PC, you simply hit the VR button over here on the right. Well, it'll be on the top in some instances, and it'll be up and running, and you'll be in VR in this space. Additionally, if you wanted to share this project with someone who just wants to view it on their laptop or mobile, you can send it to Twinmotion Cloud. So this is essentially pixel streaming, but all the difficult aspects of hosting is figured out by the Twinmotion team. You start by selecting the media you want to share, you publish it to the cloud, you wait a bit for the cloud servers to finish processing, and then visit your dashboard that contains all your Twinmotion projects to find links, password controls, QR codes for distribution, making it very easy to share projects both with your teams and clients. I will say that process can be a little bit slow if you're in a hurry, so don't do it right at the last minute. But you can see in this video, at first the guy was moving the mouse around and you were able to actually navigate your scene in a web browser on your own PC, right? It also had these preset camera views in place. So you're able to kind of have a curated experience with the model that you're sharing. So great for use with clients, great for use in meetings where you're trying to share your ideas in various media types. All right, and last but not least, Twinmotion now has configurators. Coolest thing ever. I know they've been in Unreal for a long time, but Twinmotion makes it stupid simple. So basically, this functionality allows you to set up different design options. I mean, we all deal with design options all the time. And these design options can be toggled on and off in real time with no lag whatsoever, right? So in this example, we have a selection of car paint colors to review, as well as a variety of different camera views. And I'll say that you can learn how to set this up in Twinmotion in a fraction of the time it would take you to figure this out in Unreal. One thing to note about configurations, they do not transfer over to Unreal through the Datasmith export process, tying the two platforms together. But if my Epic friends are in the room, they may say that it's on the roadmap. So sometime in the future. All right, now for animation or TV. You may want to convey a storyline, right? So the visuals don't all have to be great. Like, do we all really want to design a gas station? Not so much. But you just need to get something out quickly to convey your idea. And as mentioned previously, Twinmotion gives you the flexibility to create a full spectrum of output types. So this is where Twinmotion can fit in perfectly, quickly creating scenes from the built-in library content, adjusting materials and lighting, and exporting cameras, imagery, and video in just a few steps. No level sequences needing to be created. Simply hit a plus sign, which I don't think they've done it. Hit a plus sign to save your viewport for camera views and videos export. There they go. You can now add in animated FBXs as well into Twinmotion, which furthers this benefit for anyone working with animated assets. So in general, working on projects with other teams where someone else may need to jump in, Twinmotion is a great solution as it provides comfort and backup plans for teams that may not have that Unreal Engine knowledge. So now we have an understanding of how each industry could benefit from using Twinmotion as a solution. Sorry, let's actually open it up and use it. Okay. You can, sorry. There we go. We are going to come over into the engine. Okay. So let's kind of revisit a few of the things that we talked about earlier. For those of you not familiar with the Unreal Engine interface, with the Twinmotion interface, but have seen Unreal, quite different, right? Very easy on the eyes, easy to navigate. But basically the structure is library on the left, a handful of different tabs here on the bottom that help you deal with your scene, right? Import, modeling, materials, these are essentially PCGs, this populate section down here on the bottom, and then media, where you save your images and export how you get your stuff out the door. So let's start again with the import process that we saw at the beginning of this. Where is okay, import bot. So there's a plus button you hit, and you come to this window. So we've got 5 options. We're only going to talk mostly about geometry today, but I'll talk about direct link briefly, because direct link is this system whereby you have your modeling app open and you have Twinmotion open at the same time, and they establish a connection. And when you hit synchronize from your modeling app, what you see in your view is transferred over into a Twinmotion file. Easy, right? Super appealing to people that come from maybe Enscape, that are used to working in Revit, and they want to just hit the start button and see their environment for, in a rendered fashion. I could go into the weeds on why I switched from Enscape to Twinmotion at a future date, but the direct link process requiring both of those applications to be open means you're splitting your computer resources. You got 2 programs that can be heavy that are both tapping your GPU and your CPU and your RAM, right? I pretty much always want to run as fast and lean as I can, so that option starts to not be as attractive for me. Also, I find that the direct link workflow on my computer after I'm working at it, like say I'm working at it for 6 hours throughout the day, sometimes the connection drops. And then the only way to get that connection restarted, in my experience, is to shut down both computers, or shut down both applications, restart them both, make sure the connection is there again, so that as I'm making changes in my modeling app, those changes can be synchronized over to Twinmotion. I don't like that. I don't like being stopped. I don't like having to restart my applications, particularly when on large projects, saving in Revit, to the cloud or whatever platform you're working with, can be painful, right? You can have sometimes a very long wait, and I don't have time for that. So the geometry option to me is kind of clearly the better option because you're using the same tool to export the datasmith, right? But you can parse your model into separate views to split it up into either bite-sized pieces that don't take as long to export, or you split it up into pieces that are changing versus not changing, right? And as you iterate through the design process, you just re-export the stuff that's changing. And you can change your mind along the way and be like, well, I'm going to restructure how I'm exporting my data, 3 days from now because the design team decided they're going to redesign an entrance over on the other side of the building. Well, I just split it up. So it allows for a lot of flexibility, no drop connections, et cetera. And usually my day is much less stressful when I don't have those types of issues. All right, so that's enough about that. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel because this is a scene from the template. This is one of the template files that's available in the Twinmotion. When you first open Twinmotion, you're presented with a screen, and there's a templates thing on the left-hand side that gives you an option to download these and start working with them. So I just brought it in as a backdrop. It's pretty desolate, right? But we're going to have some fun with it. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the library, and I'm going to, and you can see the responsiveness too of this interface. Other platforms, sometimes you're waiting for these libraries to show up and the thumbnails to appear. No tolerance for that in my day. So library is super responsive, but you'll notice like these assets here at the top, all ready to go. You go down a little bit and you start to see these arrows. Those arrows mean they're available, but they're in the cloud and you have to download those assets. Can take a minute, a few seconds, something like that. So just know there's sort of some stuff that gets installed by default and other things that come in on demand. So I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag, right? I'm putting a tree in the scene. There it is over in my scene graph on the right. This is kind of effectively the Unreal Engine outliner. And you can see it's got a visibility setting. It's got a little icon representing what it is, and it's got a little drop down here that allows you to do certain things to it, rename, move, etc. So I'm going to zoom into this object, and I'm going to say to myself, you know what? Do I really think that tree would exist out here in the desert? Probably not. But I'm going to go ahead and add a few more trees, and I'm going to do it just by selecting multiple objects in the library. And as I click, it's randomly choosing between each of these tree types. It's randomly rotating, and it's randomly scaling at the same time. So I don't have to go through that process of trying to make them all look different. Even though these, there may be multiple banyan trees here in the scene that I've added, they're all slightly adjusted so that you kind of break down that repetition. All right. Again, though, I'm like, yeah, none of these trees are going to be out here in the desert. So what can I do? Before I do this, I'm going to say, let's pretend these trees came in from our modeling app. You put them over there in Enscape or Revit or SketchUp or Rhino or whatever it might have been. You export it as keep hierarchy. They show up in the list on the right side as individual trees like these trees are here. Well, when you come into Twinmotion, all you have to do to change them out is right-click, go to Replace Object. This window opens over here on the right side, and I say, I want to replace them all with this Italian stone pine. Might be a weird choice, but we're going to do it anyway. I hit Start Replacement, and it's just done that automatically for all of those assets. This was a super simple, example of the Replace tool. My favorite actually happens to be in architecture, doors, okay? Raise your hand if you feel like your company has a good door family in Revit. I'm assuming there's some Revit users here. There's no hands up? Okay, how many Revit users do we have? Yeah, okay. So none of you have good door families, right? Yeah, it's the bane of visualizer's existence is like making those things look good for interiors. So what you do is you export your models from Revit or other modeling apps, doesn't matter if it's Revit or not. But you export your model, walls, floors, ceilings, things like that, in one specific view with the doors turned off. Even though there's a hole cut for the door, you export it with the doors turned off. Then you do that collapsed by material, most likely. Then you export your doors separately using keep hierarchy, because we can use the replace object, and the replace object here in Twinmotion allows you to use their doors. I'm going to replace trees with doors. How does that sound? Oops, sorry, wrong place. Go into the objects. Oh God, there they are. So doors here, tons of options, tons of detail. I'm just going to pick this one, for example. Whoops, I got to do my, get that out of the way. I'm going to do my replace object. I'm going to come over here. Hopefully it doesn't fail on replacing a tree with a door. It should work. Sure enough, it's got doors. And this is a terrible scene to demonstrate what I'm talking about here, but I'm going to hit the M key to drop down so that I'm locked to a eye-level perspective and I'm walking all over this rough ground. But as I get close to this door and I move into its pivot zone, it opens automatically. But check out the level of detail on these things. They are great, right? Door handles, there's hinges, there's like seals, all this kind of stuff. So again, forget having good door families in Revit. Just export them over as keep hierarchy and replace them this way, and everybody will be happy. So, all right, I'm going to hit delete. We are now going to talk about my favorite tool in Twinmotion, which is a set of tools in the Populate tab. Populate tab is here, bottom middle. There we go. Populate tab includes 3 different kind of tool categories. There's place, there's paths, and there's urban. We're not going to do urban because it basically brings in open streets content, which, if you know open streets, not so good. But I'm going to go to the place tool and start with paint, okay? So with paint, I can select things from my library, again, and drag them into my scene. Let's do something else, like a king palm. Yeah, it doesn't require me to download it, so that's a good start. All right, notice you get this brush shape. Similar to the foliage tool in Unreal, it's got a diameter you set here. So I'm gonna stretch this up to see the options, but as I increase the options, it's doing the same thing, right? It's painting that foliage, those tree things over the course of that painted area. Now, if I select this guy, I can increase the density, make a denser forest, right? But one thing to notice too, though, is in the paint tool, it's already randomized the scale and rotation and color as well. I believe the color is actually picked up from the surface. The color variation is picked up from the pixels on the surface on which the tree is painted. So if you have a varying green surface with like greens and yellows and stuff, you'll get a varying tree colors. I could be wrong about that, but that's my theory. All right, so what's the other fun thing about trees in Twinmotion? Growth, right? There's age slider. And basically the age slider morphs between several different ages of tree meshes that come with the platform. All right, so what's powerful about this? You can very quickly create a forest behind your scene, which would have taken you a long time to do in other applications, or you'd have to Photoshop, right? So we don't want to go there if we don't have to. The other thing powerful about this, though, is that after I've already painted this forest, I can say, well, there's no variation in here, right? So what if we go ahead and add something else to this? Let's do some other trees. On the fly, as I add them, it is swapping these things out. I could do more and more trees. Again, not the right trees for the desert, but you get the point. I don't have to start over or do a separate paint operation to make this happen. All right. So paint, one of my favorites. It can be heavy on your scene if you've just got miles of forest in your scene, or if you're trying to paint grass, for example, which has historically been the way that we got dense lawns. Now we have 3D grass material, which is fantastic. But it's definitely a good way to get started and to quickly kind of fill in areas of your scene for kind of background or foreground entourage. I can do that kind of thing, right? So as I come in, you can kind of get that feeling of a well, lushly vegetated landscape. All right, next part of Populate tool. Let's talk about, we're not going to do scatter. That's for, typically you're doing that for highly detailed lawns. We don't really do that as much anymore because of the 3D grass tool. But the spacing tool is phenomenal. All right, same tree issue. And I hate to be stuck on trees here. But what we're going to do is we're going to add, let's put a different one in here. Let's go with a Norway spruce. We're going to drop this in here. Now what you've got is a spline tool. Okay, so the spline tool is letting you draw a path onto which, or along which, I should say, it's placed these trees. Now, if the light, I'm going to go to the ambiance tab on the left side, make it a little bit brighter so we can kind of see things better. If you look closely, these are not rotated randomly and scaled randomly, but that's a setting within the spacing tool. So over here, we've got a couple things. We've got asset properties to look at. Again, we can use that asset properties slider to change age. It takes a second to update. We can also go to different seasons. If this tree had them, this is an evergreen, so it doesn't. But we come down to some of these other areas and we see we have other parameters to control. But in the scattering section, we've got a couple things going on. Scrolling down, we have a rotation offset. So that means, oh, it's going to rotate some degrees off of 0. But I don't want to set 1 degree for all the trees to rotate, so I'm just going to crank random rotation all the way up, and it's just done that randomization for me. I can also affect random scale to make some trees bigger than others, and again, that kind of makes it seem more natural. So that's kind of handy. Other options in the scattering or in the spacing tool under the scattering tab include random order, and that would be useful if I have different trees. So let's again bring in something else. So we've got now 2 different tree species along that same spline, and it's randomized it along that, in that application. But maybe I don't like the appearance in this scene because it picked the scales randomly. I can click this seed button, random seed button on the right side, to cycle through as many different variations as I want to get to a size and scale configuration that works for my camera view or my scene. All right. That's currently that's set up to use by count, but you can also use by distance. But for count, if I wanted to have more of them, I just move the slider and it fills in the voids, and you can get a crazy dense one if you want. But I can also say by distance and say, okay, not 3.28 feet apart, but I want these trees spaced 32 feet apart, for example. The other thing, though, that I can do for these things is set an offset. So, okay, you can see now they're all pretty much following that spline. If I say, okay, it's got a rotation offset, it's just going to, it's probably going to adjust where the rotation start point for each already rotated tree. Not too helpful the way we have it set up. But you have other things like scale offset, and you've got random scale. So again, that can kind of make things shrink and grow. We already did that, didn't we? We did part of it. Anyway, sorry if I did that twice. Next thing. Okay, so we've talked about trees, we've talked about painting, we've talked about bringing in objects. So let's go ahead and actually add something new. Let's add another thing. Let's add another landscape to the scene so I can talk about another feature that can help you work smarter in the future. Before the class, I already added a landscape. Okay, so it's basically just a big flat plane that's hovering above my other plane. I'm going to lift it up. I'm actually going to get it high enough. Sorry, plane, flat landscape. I'm going to lift it up above my trees just to give us a starting point. I also have a plane here. Okay, so I'm going to move that plane up. Come on, come through the surface. And the plane's got like an asphalt texture on it. But notice what I'm doing. I'm kind of trying to get close to where that is when I can actually just click this middle gizmo and it snaps down to the surface of the landscape below. So the reason I came over here is I wanted to show a special kind of pro tip that I've developed using the Populate spacing tool again. I'm going to make a new one, place, and I'm going to use spacing. I'm going to go to the Objects Decals panel over here and drag in a line marking, okay? What do we do with line markings? We make parking lots quickly. We don't have to do it in Revit. We don't have to do it in other applications. And this thing currently is set, again, by count, but we know, parking stalls are specific distance. So let's go to a 9-foot stall, for example. Okay, we got a 9-foot stall ready, but okay, it's kind of lonely. We need to add some cars. So let's go ahead and add the same thing. We'll go into the library on the left, down to vehicles, cars, and we're gonna add a bunch of different car types to this. And it's gonna be fun here in a second. Whoops, sorry. Unfortunately, you can't select and drop in more than one asset at a time. That's been requested, but it's just not there yet. I'm gonna end it here and then move my spline. So it just created this nice row of cars for me, right? And it put those kind of kinked because of what I did to it. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that to tighten up the tension on that spline to make those things straighten out. Now, they don't quite meet the spacing. So again, I just go to the distance for that thing and I type 9 feet. Done. I've got a row of cars. But notice the order that I added these things is repeated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, et cetera. So it's going to repeat that order in that list unless I go down into the scattering tools and I say, random order. When I do random order, it does what it says. It mixes them up at will. And again, I can go to the seed tool and I can toggle between however many options as I want. But we all know parking lots aren't full all the time, right? So what do you do to omit some of those cars but still be able to use a tool like this? Well, what is a parking space without a car in it? Anybody? Oh, come on. Sorry. Anybody know what a parking space is without a car? It's a home for a stain, okay? So I'm not sure why it's jumping in on me. Doing something funny, but anyway. So what I do is I come into this same placement tool, or spacing tool. I come to the decals, I scroll down, and guess what? We've got stains that we put on the road. So I'm gonna come down to, let's see, where is it? There they are. So I'm gonna take a stain and put it in here. And a stain, and I add enough, and you'll start to see empty spots appear on the sequence. And as I randomize, it randomizes the position of those cars and the stains below. Okay, they're too dark, right? Sure. We select them, we go to Asset Properties, and here we can just say, let's dial the opacity back. If you don't want a stain, just take it off. It's just a placeholder to create that empty spot for you in your scene. I like stains, so. I do the same thing with stains and the placement tool to create, on roadways, for example. A roadway is never just a solid gray path. It's a gray path with yellow stripes in the middle, which you can also use the placement tool to create dashes. You don't have to model them. You can, but I'll put a bunch of stains, stretch their dimension in the asset properties here, kind of in the alignment of the road, change the spacing so they all kind of blend together as decals, and you get that kind of dark oil stain down the middle of the road. Super helpful, elevates your road visualizations in a pretty effective way. All right, we've got 5 minutes to go. I could keep going with a few things. If anybody has questions, I can talk all day, so just raise your hand. We've got a mic up here at the front. Come up if you want, but I'll keep going otherwise. So. All right, all good. So let's look really quickly at the grass tool. Okay, so has anybody tried 3D grass in Twinmotion yet? It's the cat's meow. it's going to get better even in the next release. They're adding more grass types, more functionality, et cetera. But what you do is basically you go to the materials. Materials. There's a new section called 3D grass. You drag it into your scene, and it's grown grass continuously across that plane. Some cool features in this. Let's add it to like a sphere or something like the sphere we started the project with. Let's make a big one. Okay, I'm going to go back to the library, to materials, 3D grass. Oops, sorry. Drag it onto the sphere, and there it is. Well, what did it do though? Well, it's dirt underneath here, and it's grass on the top. That's because they have this cool spawn angle setting, which basically says take the angle of that surface and spawn grass only when it's within that set range. So when I started, it's just a little bit on top, and I just move this spawn angle slider, and it wraps around the whole piece if I go all the way to the end. Great for teddy bears, a few other fuzzy objects. So, and then these other settings you can get into on your own. But there's fuzziness which kind of affects the appearance at a acute angle. Typically, I would use. There have been some pretty cool examples. If you join the Facebook community on Facebook, there's lots of great artist examples there. But Luca Rodolfi is one of the guy. He wrote the book, Photorealism in Twinmotion. There's 2 releases of that book at this point. But he's got some examples of like shag rugs, and using the grass material makes it look like a shag rug. Sort of the hair, it's like a hair tool in V-Ray and other platforms. So thank you everybody for joining me today. Appreciate it.